Greece and Ukraine. Can the EU take the strain? In the interview, European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker. Mr. Juncker, the Ukraine crisis is just one of many. A wave of migrants is attempting to enter the EU, the economic crisis in Greece, the Eurosceptic parties, UKIP, the National Front, and Pegida here in Germany. It must be keeping you awake at night.
No, I can't really afford to have sleepless nights. You have to be wide awake to keep track of all the challenges facing Europe. So I make sure to sleep well. But I'm certainly concerned. There's fraying at the edges, and those fringe parties may soon move to the center if we don't address the issues appropriately. New questions arise, and old ones raise their heads again, namely whether Europe truly can be a stable home of peace and understanding. Europe's desire for a peaceful order is being challenged through Russia's actions in Crimea and eastern Ukraine. All of these things are a cause for concern.
But are you optimistic? Do you believe the EU can remain unified in these troubled times, that it can withstand these forces?
I have a feeling, and that's all it is right now, that more and more citizens realize that European nations must continue to grow closer, to become more unified. Our people only have to look to the EU's periphery to see methods at work that harken back to the first half of the 20th century. Policies are in play, powers are seeking to redraw borders. People see that Europe is becoming weaker from a demographic point of view. This is a dramatic problem. Our share of global GDP is shrinking substantially. And we are the smallest continent. Our citizens fully realize that these facts pose a challenge for each and every individual country. For that reason, there's an increasingly broad consensus that European unity is vital. Of course, some people haven't yet come to this conclusion. We all know that common sense isn't evenly distributed among nations and their citizens.
You met for the first time with new Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras in Brussels last week. The two of you shook hands and didn't let go. You left the conference room hand in hand. Why did you do that? Was it an attempt to ease tensions?
I'm well acquainted with the new Prime Minister. He was also a candidate for EU Commission President. Now he's the Greek Prime Minister, and I'm the Commission President. So it was a cordial greeting. There's no reason for it to be otherwise. We're not in some kind of contentious conflict with the Greek people and their new government. We can be courteous despite our opposing political beliefs.
But there are contentious issues. Just yesterday, Sunday, Tsipras underscored his view that the EU bailout program has failed. It's an opinion most of Europe doesn't share, but it would seem that confrontation is inevitable. What was your impression after private talks with him?
I didn't have that impression. Our talks were not amicable, and still we were able to find some areas of compromise. I wasn't able to follow all of Prime Minister Tsipras's remarks before the Greek Parliament Sunday evening, but my feeling is that he's not particularly interested in finding agreement with the rest of Europe at all costs. But he has to realize that Europe consists of many democracies, not just Greece alone. And it's up to him to produce points that will lead to an accord. There's no way that all 27 or all 18 Euro countries will move unilaterally in Athens' direction. There has to be movement on both sides. It doesn't have to be completely symmetrical.
In other words, Greece would be forced out of the Eurozone if it refuses to obey the rules of membership.
That scenario doesn't appear on my radar screen. In my 3 years as Eurogroup boss, I did my best to assure that Greece would not leave the euro, nor would it be forced out of the eurozone, nor would it jeopardize its eurozone membership on purpose. Now that the situation is improving, there's no need to look at worst-case scenarios. Prime Minister Tsipras feels the same way. So we will work together to assure that Greece remains part of the eurozone. Of course, it's critical that we abide by the terms of the Greek bailout. This is about interdependence. One for all and all for one.
What can you offer that the new Greek government could live with?
You can't seriously believe I'm going to answer this question.
There's talk of an extension.
On November 27, 2012, the Eurogroup released a final protocol. It stipulates in black and white which further steps the participating countries could take if Greece fulfilled certain obligations. I stand by that protocol because there's no better plan. It's a solid plan because I chaired the meeting on November 27, 2012, and I personally formulated the conclusions. So I'm standing by it.
Is Germany too fixated on keeping to the exact terms of the stability package? It has caused considerable backlash within the EU.
No, Europe needs this virtuous triad. First, budgetary responsibility, adherence to the stability criteria. Second, structural reforms that are absolutely necessary. And third, programs that promote economic and job growth. Europe simply must deal with its investment problem, the reticence to invest private capital. It's not Germany's fault for concentrating on fiscal responsibility. Others can't be faulted for pursuing responsible spending and structural reforms along with the vital third point, creating jobs and growing the economy.
One of your most ambitious projects is the investment package. Just a reminder to our viewers, it has a 315 billion euro price tag. 21 billion of that has already been earmarked, and you want a ratio of 1 to 15 in terms of public funds and private capital. How do you intend to convince investors to bet on Europe?
There's more than enough capital available in Europe. The problem is, all of those funds are being invested where they don't belong. They should be put to work to kickstart growth. The goal of this investment package is to avoid new debt and increasing deficits. We want to rely as little as possible on EU revenue, but to use those funds as leverage for financial instruments that will produce stronger and more intense investment in Europe. The package encompasses research, energy production, digital Europe, a European energy union, infrastructure projects. It's about increasing Europe's economic potential in the medium term. That will also create more jobs throughout Europe.
Are you concerned that the variety of projects will become a political football, that the 28 member countries will be fighting to get the biggest piece of the pie?
I'm not concerned at all about that, for a simple reason. The allocations won't be made by the European Commission, rather the European Investment Bank. I consciously made this decision to keep the project from becoming mired in bureaucratic wrangling that often produces bad choices. Individual governments or parliaments won't be able to put pressure on the Commission. The projects must be the kind that wouldn't be undertaken without the investment package. They must also be projects that present a real potential for economic growth and job creation.
Speaking of individual countries, looking at the Ukraine crisis, diplomatic efforts are being made by individual nations. German Chancellor Merkel, French President Hollande. Where is EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini?
Die EU-Außenbeauftragte da nieder bei Mogherini?
When Hollande and Merkel flew to Kiev and Moscow, Ms. Mogherini knew full well why they did so and what they were trying to accomplish.
Would it help if you played a bigger role, possibly as mediator?
Negotiating peace is much more important than grandstanding.
As Commission President, is there something you can offer Russia that might diffuse the situation? Perhaps a customs union?
I'm sure you've noted that talks are underway between Germany, France, the EU, Russia, and Ukraine. It makes no sense to comment on these negotiations from the sidelines. We'll allow the negotiators to do their job and keep our opinions to ourselves.
You've changed sides, so to speak. For the past 20 years, you've held positions on the European Council, and now you're EU Commission President. Do you feel you have more power now, that you can exert more influence?
Questions like that leave me cold. As Luxembourg Prime Minister and Eurogroup boss, I did everything in my power to manage the economic crisis. As Commission President, I can take certain steps to promote economic growth and job creation. I'm well acquainted with the member nations and with the workings of the Commission. I have a broad view that keeps me on a solid course.
Do you enjoy your job?
It's not about having fun. This isn't a taxpayer-financed amusement park. We do what we have to do.
Thank you.
I did enjoy our interview.
Das freut mich.